He arrived in town just for food, but found a starving Apache girl begging for shelter. He thought it would be a quick stop, grab supplies, keep riding, no attachments. But then he saw her, knees in the dust, lips cracked from thirst, holding out a trembling hand no one in town dared to touch. The townsfolk passed her like she was already dead, but she lifted her head when he stepped forward, as if she'd been waiting for him alone. If he only came for food. Why does it feel like she's the one who's been sent for him? A tin cup hit the ground with a dull clang, rolling through the dust until it stopped against a worn leather boot. The man didn't reach for it. He just stood there, the sun carving a hard line across his hat brim, watching the girl in the dirt struggle to breathe between shivers. Her hair was tangled with sand, skin blistered from wind and hunger, wrapped in a torn scrap of cloth that might have once been a dress. She didn't look up at first. No one did in this town, not when mercy cost more than bullets. Wagons creaked by. A rancher spat near the barrel, muttering under his breath about strays begging like dogs. The girl flinched at the sound, not from the words, but from the weight of being seen and dismissed in the same breath. She wasn't holding her hand out for money, just for shade, maybe a place by a wall where the wind wouldn't cut her open each time it passed. The man shifted his grip on the saddle rope slung over his shoulder. He had come for one thing only: flour, jerky, maybe coffee if his coins stretched far enough. He wasn't here to pick up strays, start fights, or get tangled in anyone's misery. He'd ridden half a day with his stomach hollow and dust thick in his throat. Mercy wasn't on the list. But then she looked at him. Not all the way. Her gaze hovered just beneath his chin, like she didn't believe she had the right to look higher. Her eyes weren't pleading. They were tired, resigned in a way that spoke of long hunger and longer memories. She didn't ask him for food. She didn't ask him for anything. She just steadied her trembling hand on the ground so she wouldn't fall over in front of him. A gust of wind swept through the street, lifting the edge of her ragged shawl just enough to reveal the blue of old bruises along her ribs. His boots stayed planted, but something in his chest didn't. A shadow from his hat fell over her cup. She flinched, then held still. He crouched, slow, careful, as if the earth itself might spook. "Can you stand?" he asked. A pause. Dry lips parted. Not fast. He loosened the canteen strap, unscrewed the cap with a scrape, held it so she could smell the metal and the cool inside. "Easy," he said. "Small sips." She took the canteen with both hands. The first swallow shook her. The second steadied her. He watched her throat catch the light like river stone. Someone cleared a throat behind him. "Not wise," a voice said. "Town has rules." He didn't turn yet. The girl finished a sip and lowered the canteen. Her fingers lingered, guarding it like a small fire. "What rules?" he asked without looking. "Vagrancy, loitering, reservation order. Depends who asks," the voice replied. Boots clicked on the boardwalk. Ledger paper rustled. He rose, slow, and faced a man with a courteous smile and a tarnished badge. A ribbon of dust traced the man's polished shoes. "Afternoon," the man said. "Fine day for business." "I came for food," he answered. "And found a situation," the man said. "Happens!" The girl's eyes followed the sound of their boots. She pulled her shawl closer, as if silence could be cloth. He angled himself so his shadow touched her shoulders. "She needs shelter," he said. "Shelter costs," the man replied. "Food costs. Ordinances cost more. Town must keep order." "Order," he said, "or comfort?" The man kept his smile. "Comfort is a private luxury. Order is public duty." A storekeeper leaned from a doorway. "Move her off my steps." "She's on the street," he said. "It's still my view," the storekeeper answered, "and it scares customers." The girl's fingers tightened on the canteen. She did not beg. She did not speak. The wind spoke instead, slipping past the barrel, lifting grit into her hair. "Let me help her," he said. "How long?" the man asked. "A meal? A night? A season?" "A roof," he said. "A corner, until she can stand." "Stand where?" the man asked softly. "On whose land? With what papers?" "Paper. Always the weapon that didn't look like one." "She's starving," he said. "Plenty starve without breaking rules," the man replied. He knelt again and pulled a strip of jerky from his coat. The girl stared at the shadow of his hand. She didn't reach, pride or habit or both. "It's yours," he said. Her voice barely rose. "I can work." "I know," he said. The storekeeper snorted. "Work? Who hires that trouble?" He looked at the storekeeper once. Quiet, long enough for the man to shrink back behind the door. The girl took the jerky. She smelled it first. Then she bit, careful not to seem greedy. He saw the pain in her jaw from chewing air too long. A bell tolled from the church up the hill. Noon. The sound rolled down like heat. "Here's the matter," the man with the badge said. He lifted the ledger, pages marked with tidy lines. "The county pays the mission to house strays. The mission charges the county again. The town signs the bill. Everyone wins." "Everyone," he said. "Everyone who matters," the man replied, almost kindly. "She's not a bill," he said. The man's smile thinned. "Don't make this hard." "You already did," he said. The man breathed out, patient. "I'll write a notice. She goes with the wagon at dusk. You can donate if your heart leans that way." "She doesn't go," he said. "Sir," the man said, smoothing the ledger, "you rode in for food. Do that. Don't marry trouble." He felt the weight of the canteen leave his hand. The girl had finished. She held it out like a promise returned. "More?" he asked. She shook her head. A small shake. Dignity wrapped in dust. He capped the canteen. His throat burned with thirst he could ignore. "What if I sign?" he asked. The man brightened. "A guarantee." "A sponsor," he said. "Room and board." "I cover her keep." The man glanced at the girl. "You sure that's more than a meal?" "I know the math," he said. "Then we require a mark," the man said. "And witnesses. And a monthly pledge." "Paper," he said. "Paper," the man agreed. The girl's breath quickened. "Why?" she asked softly. "So you have a key," he said. "A key to what?" she asked. "To a door," he said. "Any door." Her eyes dropped. Her hands trembled like leaves wanting a branch. The man with the badge lifted his pen. "Name?" "No names," he said. "Mark will do." The pen hovered. "Your mark, then." He took the pen. The nib scratched the page. Ink bled into county lines and the quiet arithmetic of debt. A rider clattered by, glancing at the scene. Two women whispered near the well. A boy watched with wolf-bright eyes, then looked away like he'd been caught stealing hope. The man with the badge blew on the ink. "Witnesses," the storekeeper muttered. "Leave me out." A seamstress in the doorway spoke. "I'll watch." "Thank you, ma'am," the man said. She nodded at the girl. Her voice softened. "Come by the back later. I got thread." The girl swallowed hard. A color touched her cheeks that wasn't windburn. "See?" the man with the badge said. "Order, with kindness where possible." He met the man's eyes. "Kindness goes first." "Not in ledgers," the man said. Footsteps rattled the boardwalk. New boots. He didn't turn yet. He folded the copy the man slid across and tucked it inside his coat. "Monthly pledge," the man reminded. "I'll meet it," he said. "Don't miss," the man said. "Missing makes trouble grow legs." He crouched again, close enough to shield the girl from the sun. "Can you stand now?" She breathed in, braced her hands, tried. The effort shook her. "Easy," he said. "Lean on me." She hesitated, pride again. Then survival spoke louder. She reached for his sleeve, fingers closed on rough cloth, not begging, just balance. A voice drifted down the street, bright and brittle. "Afternoon, gentlemen." Polite, measured, carrying like a bell. The man with the badge straightened. He glanced past him toward the sound. "A pleasure," he called. "We were just setting matters right." "Excellent," the voice said, "because matters have owners." The girl stiffened. Her nails pressed into his sleeve, not fear. Something older. He rose with her weight, slow, steady. He turned toward the voice. A figure approached in fine, dusted boots. Coat clean, hat straight. A satchel under one arm. Papers tied in neat twine. No pistol on the belt, just a brass seal on the satchel flap. The man with the badge lifted his chin. "Counselor." "Good day," the newcomer said. "I'm here about unpaid notes. and town policy. Policy? He asked. The councillor smiled like a blade kept warm. Lodging for undesirables within district limits. Fees apply. Liens attach. Liens to what? He asked. To the sponsor, the councillor said. You. The street hushed. Even the wind waited. He felt the girl's weight lean into him, fragile as bird bone and just as stubborn. The councillor set the satchel on the barrel, untied the twine, drew out a folded notice with a broken seal. By order of County Court, the councillor read, all guardians of transients must register within the day, submit bond, and present proof of lawful residence. The man with the badge exhaled. New rule? New today, the councillor said. Progress never sleeps. He looked at the girl. She stared at the dust, jaw clenched against the small quake in her legs. Bond, he asked. Substantial, the councillor said, but civilized. What if I refuse? He asked. Then the mission collects her, the councillor said, with costs. And if I sign? He asked. You carry her debt, the councillor said, and any trouble she brings. The bell above the church struck once. A long iron note. It hung in the heat, like a held breath. A cartwheel creaked at the far end of the street. Hooves shifted. A shadow slid across the ground, long and slow, like something big had stopped just out of sight. A knock sounded behind them. 3 dull knocks. The storehouse door. Then a fourth, heavier, like a fist that knew it didn't need permission. The knocks echoed again. Slow. Certain. The storehouse door stayed shut. Open it, the councillor called. Town business. No one moved. Dust drifted in the sunlight like slow rain. The girl leaned heavier against his sleeve. He shifted to hold her weight. Breathe, he said. She obeyed. A shallow breath. Then another, steadier. The badge holder tapped the ledger. Let's not crowd. The councillor slipped on kid gloves. Kindness with signatures. That's all. Kindness first, he said. Kindness with bond, the councillor said, or none. The storehouse latch scraped. A bar lifted. The door swung inward an inch. Then a hand appeared holding a folded paper with red wax. The councillor took it, broke the seal, smiled. Good timing, he said. The mission wagon is near. The girl's fingers pinched his sleeve until the fabric creaked. He eased her hand. Steady. She nodded once. Barely. The councillor read, Notice to collect transients. Fees appended. Bond required within the hour. Within the hour, he asked. Today's docket is full, the councillor said. We run tight. The badge holder sighed. Rules are rules. He kept his voice even. How much for bond? The councillor named a number that felt like a winter. He looked at his coat, at the tired horse, at the horizon that had fed him more silence than coin. Too high, the councillor asked. It's a weight, he said. Then the mission takes her, the councillor replied. Warm bed, thin soup, clean conscience. The girl lifted her chin. Please, not the mission. Her voice was coarse string. It still carried. Why not? The councillor asked. They sell labour, she said, not shelter. The badge holder glanced away. That's not for us. It is, she said. I keep the scars. The councillor slid the notice back into the satchel. Stories cost nothing. Bonds do. He knelt until his face was level with hers. No names. No promises. I said roof, he told her. I keep my word. Words don't stop wagons, the councillor said. He stood, pulled off his coat, folded it, placed it over her shoulders like shade that knew her shape. A small act. A first door. Thank you, she whispered. A woman at the seamstress shop watched from the doorway. She lifted a hand. Back room is cool. Later, he said. If we can walk. You'll walk, the woman said. You look stubborn. The badge holder closed the ledger. Wagon first, then arrangements. Hoofbeats echoed faint on the road. Not fast, not slow. Inevitable. The councillor brushed dust from his gloves. We can simplify this. How? He asked. Pay the bond now, the councillor said. Register at the office. Bring her under your roof. If you fail later, the lien takes your gear. My gear is small, he said. Then pick better promises, the counselor replied. The girl tried to stand alone. Her knees faltered. He caught her by the elbows before she fell. Don't lift me, she said. I won't, he said. Just balance, her jaw set. Balance is all I need. He looked at the badge holder. Let me buy food, then office. The badge holder hesitated. Don't run. I don't run, he said. Many say that, the badge holder replied. The counselor checked the sun. Half hour, no more. Agreed, he said. He guided the girl toward the store. The storekeeper frowned, then shrugged at the ledger and stepped aside. Inside, cool air held the scent of flour and lye. Light slanted through a dirty window. Mice scratched somewhere deep in a bin. Lean here, he said. She touched the counter. She stood on her own. He took a small sack of flour, coffee in a tin, dried beans, bread wrapped in brown paper. He added a second loaf and stared at it until the storekeeper measured the price lower without speaking. Salt, the girl whispered. He nodded. Salt. She swallowed. For water. He added salt. And a blanket, thin but honest. The storekeeper wrote the sum. Coin or trade? Coin, he said. He counted each piece. The pile shrank until his pockets were a map of empty roads. Next month? The storekeeper asked. I'll ride, he said. I always ride. Good, the storekeeper said. Riding pays better than praying. He packed the food in a canvas sack, tied the flap. He broke a corner from the bread, handed it to the girl. Small bites, he said. She obeyed, chewed slow, eyes wet without tears. Boots sounded on the boardwalk outside. A voice barked orders. Harness leather creaked. The mission wagon had arrived. He met her gaze. Not above it. Not away. You walk with me, he said. If they pull me, she asked. I pull back, he said. That breaks things, she said. Some things deserve breaking, he said. They stepped into the sun. The wagon was a plain box with faded paint and a cross. 2 men rode the bench. A third stood on the street with a list. He had soft hands and a tired smile. Afternoon, the list man said. We'll make space. Not her, he said. Paper says otherwise, the list man replied. Names? No names, he said. I sponsor. Where's Bond? The list man asked. Office soon, he said. Soon doesn't bind, the list man said. The badge holder raised a palm. We gave our word. Half hour. The list man frowned. The mission runs on time. Today it runs on mercy, the badge holder said. The counselor stepped closer. Bond or wagon, that's the hinge. The girl braced her feet in the dust. I won't climb. The list man exhaled. I won't drag you. Rules forbid marks. Rules permit hunger, she asked. Rules avoid lawsuits, the list man said, almost kind. A rider trotted up with a courier bag. He handed the counselor a sealed envelope. The counselor read fast, then slowed, then looked at the girl like she was a ledger mistake. What changed? The badge holder asked. The counselor tapped the envelope. New policy. Sponsors must prove work for the transient within 2 days, else default, else seizure. Seize what? He asked. Your gear? Your horse? Maybe your land, the counselor said. I have little land, he said. The counselor smiled sadly. Then the horse walks first. The girl clenched her hands. I can work. What work? The counselor asked. Wash, mend, haul. Learn fast, she said. I don't break. The seamstress called from her doorway. I need hands, back room, thread and cloth. No customers see her until she's fed and clean. The counselor considered. Wage? Small, the seamstress said. But honest. Start today. The badge holder rubbed his jaw. If there's work, there's bond hope. The counselor nodded, slow. With written offer, signed. I sign, the seamstress said. Bring her by. The list man sighed. Mission can return empty, then. Return lighter, the counselor said. Law prefers receipts. The badge holder looked at him. Get the bond, hurry. He shouldered the canvas sack, adjusted the strap, offered the girl his arm. Step by step, he said. She placed her hand on his sleeve again. Soft, Stubborn. They walked. The wagon creaked behind them like a threat turned sideways. Children watched from a porch. A dog barked, then fell quiet as if shamed by the heat. At the corner, the office door stood open, cool, dim, dust motes like slow stars. A brass scale on the desk, shelves of bound ledgers, a clock that ticked like a nail. They entered. The clerk looked up. He wore spectacles and a gentle frown. "Bond registration?" the clerk asked. "Yes," he said. "For the girl?" the clerk asked, eyes softening. "Yes," he said. "Papers?" the clerk asked. He placed the councillor's notice on the desk. The clerk read. He set it down like something that might burn. "Do you have a fixed address?" the clerk asked. "A small place," he said. "Proof?" the clerk asked. He reached into his coat for the folded copy from the badge holder. His fingers found air. Empty. The clerk waited. "Sir?" He checked every pocket. Canteen strap. Sack strap, nothing. The girl's voice was quiet. "You had it." "I know," he said. Bootsteps stopped in the doorway. The councillor leaned against the frame. He held up a folded paper between two fingers. "I believe you dropped this," the councillor said. Relief moved through him, thin as water. The councillor's smile didn't warm. "I also found this." He lifted a second paper, older, dirt-stained, edges curled, a county poster with a red stamp. The badge holder stepped in fast. "What is that?" The councillor tapped the stamp. "A prior levy." "Against who?" the clerk asked. The councillor tilted the poster so the light caught the print. "Against the sponsor," he said, "for unpaid road fees." The room shrank. The clock ticked louder. The girl's hand tightened on his sleeve. "Is that true?" the badge holder asked. He stared at the old stamp. At the debt he thought Winter had buried. "It's paid," he said. "I paid it, months back." "Receipt?" the clerk asked. He had no receipt, only the taste of dirt roads and a memory of coins changing hands in a wind that didn't listen. The councillor set the levy beside the notice. Neat. Final. No bond issued while a levy stands. The clerk winced. That's the rule. Outside, the mission wagon's brake groaned. A chain clinked. The door at the back swung open with a hollow thud, like a mouth learning how to close on something soft. The room held its breath. "Explain," the councillor said, voice flat. The rider wiped dust from his eyes. "There's a claim, filed last week. Someone already registered her." The girl's head turned slowly, her hands curled into fists. "No one owns me." "Not ownership," the rider said, catching his breath. "Custodial claim. Filed by a ranch outside town. They paid deposit. She's listed as labor." "Show proof," the councillor demanded. The rider pulled a crumpled document from his coat. The seal was smudged, but the ink was county black. He tossed it on the desk beside the levy. The clerk scanned it, color drained from his face. "It's official." The councillor took the paper. His jaw tightened just slightly. "Sponsor name?" The rider hesitated. "Not a sponsor. A buyer." The girl went still. "The mission sold her ahead?" the badge holder asked. The rider nodded once. "Auction through the county." "Quiet. Contract labor clause," the seamstress whispered. "They sold her like stock." The councillor's tone remained smooth, but a crack lived under it. "Labor contracts are legal under relief law." The girl's voice was steady, but her knuckles were white. "Which ranch?" the rider swallowed. "North side. The red brand. They sent me. They saw the wagon come. They want her now." A murmur rolled down the street outside, like dust shifting before a storm. The townsfolk were listening without stepping closer. The councillor tapped the contract. "If this is valid, bond cannot override purchase." "She is not purchase," the man said. "She is paper," the councillor replied. "Paper rules this town." The girl stepped forward. "I didn't sign." "You don't sign under relief law," the rider said. "The county signs for you." The badge holder looked sick. "How much deposit?" The rider muttered a number. The seamstress gasped. "That's less than a horseshoe." The councillor's voice lowered, almost apologetic. "Cheap labor travels fast." The man's hand rested on the folded coat on the desk. "Tear it." The councillor looked at him. "I cannot." The girl's voice cut clean. "Who signed?" The rider hesitated. "Your father's mark." The room turned colder than shade. The girl's eyes burned, not with tears, but heat held too long. "He sold me again." The rider didn't meet her gaze. "And he said you owed him, for food he gave you as a child." A silence fell hard enough to crack stone. The counselor smoothed the contract like it was nothing more than linen. "By law, original contract stands. Bond is secondary. She goes north." The seamstress stepped in. "That contract is filth." She barely breathes. "Law doesn't breathe," the counselor said. The wagon outside groaned as someone adjusted the brake. The chain clinked again, patient, certain. The man moved between the girl and the counselor without raising his voice. "I paid bond." "You offered bond," the counselor corrected. "Unpaid levy voids it." "Then I pay triple," he said. The clerk flinched. "Triple is ruin." The counselor looked intrigued. "You trade your life for hers." "She deserves her own," he said. The counselor considered him, genuinely curious now. "You fight paper with sacrifice." "It's all I have," he said. The rider shifted uneasily. "The ranch is coming. They have riders. They won't wait for signatures." The girl spoke again, low, controlled. "I don't go north." "You don't choose," the counselor said. She looked at the man beside her, then at the seamstress, then at the clerk, whose hands still trembled over the ledger. "I walk," she said, "but not behind a wagon or tied to a ranch post." The rider shook his head. "You won't make it 2 miles. They'll track you." "I've been tracked before," she said. The counselor leaned back, folding his hands. "Let her run. She'll be caught. Easier than arguing law." The seamstress stepped forward. "What if she works here under my roof? Quiet. Hidden. No hiding," the counselor said. "Law hates shadows. It burns them." The clerk whispered, "There's a clause. Substitution of labor. 2 in place of 1. "Meaning?" the man asked. "Someone stands in her place," the clerk said. "Same work, same term, contract fulfilled without her." "Who would do that?" the counselor asked. The girl's voice answered first. "No one." The seamstress looked at her hands. "I would, but I'm old." The badge holder stared at the floor. "I can't. My post keeps me." The room fell silent again. Then the man spoke. "I'll stand." The clerk looked up sharply. "You would take her contract. If it keeps her free," he said. "That contract is years," the rider said quietly. "Hard labor. Bad ground." "I've known worse," he said. The counselor watched him with something like disbelief. "You trade your saddle life for a post." He didn't blink. "I said she walks free." The counselor looked at the girl. "You accept that trade?" She shook her head. "No man trades chains for me." "It's not chain," he said. "It is," she said. "And you don't deserve it." The rider glanced nervously toward the street. "They're nearly here." As if summoned by the words, a low rumble began beyond the office walls. Hooves, more than one, riding in tight formation. The counselor turned his head, listening. The badge holder's hand lowered to his pistol, a slow instinct. The girl's breathing steadied, then slowed, like someone stepping into cold water by choice. The man placed his hand flat on the desk, beside the coat and the saddle straps, not pleading, claiming. The hooves drew closer, slow, like they already owned the road. A shadow moved across the window, wide-brimmed hats, dusted coats, rifles resting easy across saddles. The rider swallowed. "They sent the foreman." The seamstress whispered a prayer. The counselor adjusted his cuffs. "Then let's greet them." Outside, boots hit the ground. Spurs rang like small hammers, and then a knock. Not on the door this time. On the window glass, slow, deliberate, like someone tapping to see who would flinch first. The glass rattled again, slow, deliberate. Everyone turned. The counselor drew a calm breath. "We appear to have guests." Outside, 3 riders waited in a line, dust hanging around them like smoke. Each carried a rifle low, muzzles tipped to the ground in manners that only half meant peace. The foreman stepped forward, coat clean except for the red brand stitched above his pocket. "Afternoon," he called. "We're here for county property." The counselor opened the door. "The office is in session." "Then close it quick," the foreman said. "Sun's high, patience low." The girl stood near the desk, still as fence-post shadow. Her eyes followed the light, not the men. The badge holder moved between her and the doorway. No gunplay in the clerk's room. No need, the foreman said. We've got ink enough. He handed over a new paper, fresh seal, bold letters, transfer order, Red Brand Ranch. The councillor unfolded it, scanned the lines, and smiled faintly. All signatures present. Then we'll take her, the foreman said. The man spoke quietly. She's not yours. The foreman studied him. You buying trouble, stranger? I already did, he said. The foreman's grin showed no humor. We pay taxes. We feed state mouths. You feed one, yours, and think it makes you righteous. She's not a tax, he said. She's a mouth, the foreman replied. Mouths work, or they waste. The councillor raised a hand. Let's stay civil. The contract stands. The girl stepped closer to the desk. That paper's forged. The foreman's eyes narrowed. You calling the county a liar? I call you one, she said. A beat of silence. The badge holder's hand hovered near his holster. The councillor sighed. Truth won't matter here, paper will. The man looked at the foreman. How much did you pay? Doesn't matter. It does, he said, because I'll pay double. The room froze. The foreman laughed once. You think we sell pride? We sell labor. You don't got the years left to match it. I've got blood, he said, and time. The councillor watched with a scholar's interest. Double would void the first sale. The foreman's tone cooled. We don't void, we collect. He stepped into the room, boots heavy. The smell of horse and metal followed him. Step aside, he said. No, the man answered. The foreman glanced at the badge holder. Lawman, move him. Can't, the badge holder said. He's under petition. Petition won't stop lead, the foreman said. The girl spoke again, voice steady. He's not your fight. He didn't move. It's already mine. The foreman's hand twitched near his belt. Not quite a draw, just enough to promise. The councillor closed the ledger with a soft thud. Gentlemen, perhaps a compromise. There's no compromise, the foreman said. She rides north. The seamstress, still near the doorway, suddenly lifted a folded cloth. Then she won't ride empty, she said. She crossed to the girl, wrapped the cloth over her shoulders, clean linen smelling of lavender and smoke. It looked like armor in sunlight. Thank you, the girl whispered. The foreman sneered. Pretty rags. Won't stop work. Neither will your papers, the seamstress said. The councillor rubbed his temple. Enough. The county will decide this evening. Until then, she stays under Clark's protection. The foreman leaned close. You hiding behind stamps now? The councillor didn't blink. Always. Outside, thunder rolled. Not sky, hooves, more riders. The foreman's men tightening the ring. The clerk peeked through the shutters. 6, maybe 8. The badge holder muttered, That's not collection, that's message. The man glanced at the girl. Can you run? She shook her head. Not far. He nodded once. Then we don't. The councillor's voice dropped. They won't shoot first. Town eyes on them. The foreman stepped back toward the door. Eyes close when paid. He whistled. The riders outside dismounted, boots striking dust in rhythm. The girl gripped the desk edge. They'll burn your papers. Then I'll write new ones, the councillor said, though his hand trembled. The badge holder spoke low to the man. If they push, take the back door. Old alley leads to the well. And you? The man asked. I'll stall, the badge holder said. Not the first time I've been shot at for justice. The councillor frowned. Justice is poor armor. Still beats none, the badge holder said. A crack of glass, a bullet mark bloomed on the window, powder dust floating like snow. Nobody moved for a heartbeat. The foreman smiled. Warning shot, the councillor whispered. I count one warning. The girl's voice was almost calm. They'll come in next. The man reached for the saddle strap lying on the desk, wrapped it around his hand like leather prayer. He turned to the clerk. Back door key. The clerk fumbled, pulled it from a drawer. Rusty, sticks. I'll make it move, he said. He looked at the girl. When I open it, you run to the alley. Follow the shade. She shook her head. Not without you. Don't argue, he said. I don't, she said. I refuse. Outside, another shout. Bring her out. The councillor raised his voice. Under review. Come back at dusk. A pause. Then a deeper voice, not the foreman's. Older, heavier. "She's county debt, not charity. Open that door or we'll open it for you." The badge holder whispered, "That's the sheriff." The counselor paled. "He signs my pay." The girl's grip tightened on the desk. "Same sheriff who sold the papers." The man looked toward the door, voice low. "Then paper ends here." He swung the strap once around his palm, leather creaking. The seamstress stepped beside the girl. "If you run, I'll cover you." "You'll die," the badge holder said. "Maybe," she said, but not sitting down. The next sound wasn't hooves, wasn't voice. It was the slow grind of metal on wood, a crowbar prying at the latch. The counselor backed away. "They wouldn't—" The wood splintered. Light burst through the crack like a knife, and then the door gave way, spilling dust and sunlight into the room. The door splintered inward, light and dust rushed like a flood. Boots pounded. Men filled the threshold, rifles cradled. The foreman led them, red brand visible under his coat. "Hands where we can see them," he said. The badge holder stepped forward. "No weapons inside." One of the foreman's men spat. "No one needs reminding." The girl stepped between the desk and the doorway. Her shoulders squared. She did not flee. The man tightened his grip on the saddle strap. Leather creaked soft. He breathed like a bell. "Take her," the foreman said. "Nice and easy." "She's not yours to take," the man said. The foreman smiled. "You already tried that. Didn't work." The seamstress moved to the girl's side. "Step back," she hissed. The foreman's men laughed, low, like a blade sliding. The clerk lifted his hands. "Please, let's settle with paper." The foreman tossed the signed transfer toward the desk. It landed like a verdict. The girl's voice cut through. "I will not go north." The foreman's eyes flicked. "Then we escort you. No fuss." A man at the back slapped a rifle butt against his palm. "Move!" The badge holder planted himself in front of the girl. "Not today?" The foreman laughed. "Then you pick up the law you preach." The man stepped forward. "I said she walks." "Walk where?" the foreman asked. "Out into open plains?" "She walks free," he said. "You give up your horse?" the foreman asked. He blinked. "I already did that." The foreman's smile thinned. "Then what else?" He reached to the desk and pushed the folded coat toward the girl. "Take it." She slipped the linen over her shoulders. It fell like a small dawn. The foreman snorted. "Charity draped in lace." The rider outside banged the wagon floor. "We'll load her." The seamstress grabbed the girl's hand. "When I close the back, I'll hide a path." "Don't create lies," the foreman warned. The man turned to the badge holder. "Hold them here, I make a way." "How?" the badge holder asked. He pointed at the back alley. "Old well, Mudder's path, I know it." The badge holder swallowed. "It's tracked easy." "I'll lead. You stall." The foreman spat. "You plan a stunt. Fool." "I plan a life," he said. The seamstress whispered. "I can stitch new marks, new name." "Names won't help," the foreman said. The clerk coughed. "We can sign a delay." The foreman's boot scuffed. "Delay costs gold." The man looked at the girl. "I'll buy time." She shook her head. "No." He exhaled. "Then we choose otherwise." A door at the far end burst open. A tall figure filled it. The sheriff, dark coat heavy, badge dull with age. He walked in slow. "What's this commotion?" The foreman straightened. "Sheriff." The sheriff's eyes swept the room. He paused over the papers. "Red Brand's claim." He folded his hands. "Show me documents." The rider proffered the transfer. The sheriff scanned. His face didn't move. "These are in order," he said. "The county logged them at dawn." A murmur ran the crowd like wind in grass. The man's jaw set. "Then you enforce—" The sheriff looked at him. "Enforce law. You'll let them take her?" he asked. The sheriff's voice was flat. "If law says so." The girl's breath hitched. "But she's county property until bond clears," the sheriff said. "Then break that paper," the foreman suggested. The sheriff shrugged. "Paper is what holds a town together." The man's hand tightened on the strap until his knuckles whitened. "No paper breaks life." "Words?" the sheriff asked. "Or action?" "Action," the man said. The foreman nodded to his men. Secure the door. No one leaves. The badge holder planted himself across the threshold. You can't lock the lawman out. One of the riders moved, aiming to clamp the badge holder's shoulder. A bullet cracked through the air. It struck the wooden beam above, splinters raining down. Nobody moved for a long breath. The foreman's men widened their stances. You shoot at us. It was a warning, someone said. We asked once. The sheriff's hand hovered near his coat. Who fired? A small, harsh laugh came from the back. We did. The foreman's eyes snapped. Who's in charge here? A man stepped forward from the foreman's ranks. He wore no brand, no badge. He had a scar across his cheek and a rifle steady. My people, he said. We collect what's ours. The seamstress grabbed the girl's arm. Run. You run, I draw, the badge holder said. You stand and they open fire, the seamstress said. The girl's mouth was a thin line. I refuse both. The man slung the saddle strap over his shoulder. Then listen. He turned to the sheriff. There are ways this goes. You can sit and watch or write a new order. The sheriff's eyes cut like knives. You make a new order and you answer for it. The foreman barked. We won't be threatened. The man looked at the foreman. You think you bought a body, you did not buy a life. The foreman spat again. Life costs more than you can pay. The man smiled, faint. Maybe, but some prices aren't coin. From the left window, a shadow moved. Someone had climbed to the roof next door. A rifle barrel found the sill, black and patient. The seamstress gasped. Snipers, the sheriff cursed. Down! Everyone ducked. Papers fluttered like wounded birds. A voice called from the roof. One shot and she's mine. Who's up there? The foreman demanded. A whistle answered. Quick. 2 notes. A signal. The man gripped the strap. When I stand, you make a run. The girl's face lifted. Stand then. He rose like a man learning to be a thing again. Leather sang. Dust fell. The foreman's finger tightened on a trigger. The seamstress mouthed a prayer. The sheriff did nothing. A breath held. A gunshot screamed. The crack of the gunshot ripped the room in half. Wood dust rained down like a bitter snowfall. The seamstress's prayer died on her lips. For a heartbeat, no one breathed. Then sound returned in jagged pieces. Coughs, a man swearing, leather creak. The man felt heat bloom across his shoulder, a hot star of pain. He staggered, hand slapping instinctively at the coat where the strap once looped. The saddle strap slipped from his palm and thudded to the floor. Shot! The badge holder shouted. Where from? A black barrel winked at the sill again. The roofman called down, voice thin and cruel. Tell them I'm patient. The foreman barked orders like a butcher ordering meat. Control the door, get him down. Men surged forward. Boots hammered the floor. A rifle butt cracked against a desk. The clerk ducked, paper flying from his fingers like wounded birds. The girl pressed her back to the seamstress. Her breath came quick and small. She tasted metal on the air, not from blood yet, only fear. The sheriff shoved a chair aside and moved toward the man. Hold still, he said. Hands steady, face pale. Keep the roof quiet, the foreman snapped. Take the roof. The man's fingers curled around empty leather where the strap had been, pain spiked, sharp enough to make him see white. He blinked and found the girl's face, a small, fierce island in the storm. Run, he mouthed, though it hurt to shape the word. She shook her head. Not without you. He forced his legs to work. Blood slicked his sleeve. He shuffled toward the back door, a slow, dangerous motion. A rifle barked from the front. Splinters stung like nettles. The badge holder pushed a stack of ledgers as shield, face set in lines of old grief. Go, he cried. Now! The foreman's men lunged. One grabbed the man's coat, another aimed a rifle at his ribs. Leather tore. The man grimaced, stepping on a spilled ink bottle. The dark liquid smeared his boot like prophecy. Outside, the wagon's driver kicked the wheel. Anger and business mingled. The wagon creaked forward a pace, then stopped as if a hand held the reins. The sheriff knelt beside the man, fingers moving, searching for the wound. We can't let him bleed out, he said. He looked up, eyes meeting the foreman's. Call this off. This will stain the town, the foreman spat. Stain it with truth, then. He raised his chin and pointed. Bring her. The girl pushed through the seamstress's arms. She moved like a small animal sprung from trap. I go, she said. But I go my way. You think you decide? The foreman snarled. She didn't answer. She walked to the man and dropped to her knees. Her hands moved with sudden, calm force, pressing at his shoulder. Her fingers sought the wound with a steadiness that did not belong to a child. "Hold," she told him. "Hold for me." He looked at her, not at the pain, but at the small damp line where her thumb pressed. His chest shook. He laughed once, a thin sound, like a cigar ember. "You see?" he said, voice raw. "You see?" The seamstress tore cloth from her skirt and wrapped the wound. The girl tied it, fingers knotted with practiced care. The badge holder found a bandage, pressed, tied. Outside, a rider's shout. "Cut the back!" They flee through the alley. The foreman spat on the floor. "Do it, no mercy." A man shoved past her, heading for the back. The clerk screamed, "Back door!" The clerk's key rattled in a lock. The man pushed the door and it swung open into a smell of well water and rot. For a breath, the alley looked like a promise. Dark, narrow, alive with possibility. The man shoved the girl forward. "Go," he hissed. She balked. "You," he smiled, wet and sharp. "I'm not done walking." He pulled himself upright, grit between his teeth. The seamstress wrapped his arm to his chest. He tested his legs, found balance. The sheriff gripped his shoulder, steadying. "Run now," the sheriff said softly. She looked up, eyes burning. "I leave you." He shook his head. "You leave me." A sudden crash on the roof. A man slid, caught, scrambled. The roofman called, "They move. Cut them off back alley." Boots thundered in the street. Outside, the foreman's men split into two groups, one to front, one to rear. Dust rose like a bad omen. The badge holder shoved a pistol into his hand. "If they charge the back, I cover." He slid to the threshold, head low, breath hard. "When they come, aim for noise, not kill." The man took the pistol between shaking fingers. Pain flared, then blurred. He nodded once. The clerk, pale and trembling, handed the girl a folded scrap of paper. "Exit map," he whispered. "Old well, old ladder. It's narrow, it will hide you." She folded it into her palm like a talisman. "No names," she said. "Never names," the clerk mouthed back. Outside, a rider's horse balked and reared, nostrils flaring. The foreman cursed, leapt down the steps. He barked into the street. "Cut them off! Knife to the alley!" Someone ran, leather slapping. A child's shadow crossed the threshold, then vanished. The girl stood, jaw set. She looked from the man to the alley. "I go," she said. He pushed her forward. "Now!" She stepped lightly into the back lane. The wall closed around her like a mouth. The alley smelled of old bread and rain that never came. She moved quick, each footfall a prayer. The man watched until she was swallowed by brick and shadow. Then he turned to the sheriff, voice small. "Finish this." The sheriff's hand covered his shoulder, fingers on cloth, on warm blood. He looked at the man's wound, at the empty saddle strap on the floor, at the seamstress trembling with a courage that scared her. The sheriff's jaw moved. He did not speak. A shot shattered the air, not from the roof, nor from the alley. It came from outside, low and close, and the sound of it was wrong in a way that made everyone look up. The sheriff's hand flew to his chest. He staggered back. His fingers clutched at the fabric. His breath left him with a wet sound. The room tilted. "Sheriff!" the badge holder cried. The foreman froze, face draining as if a spell had been cast. The rider who'd come in earlier muttered something under his breath and swore. Outside, the hooves stopped. A bird took off from a post, wings thrumming like a new heartbeat. The man looked at the sheriff, then at the desk, at the papers, at the foreman's men closing like nets. He gripped the pistol. Pain throbbed bright, cold. He swallowed. "Now," he said. A second shot cracked from the street near the mouth of the alley. The seamstress screamed. The girl staggered in the dark, hand over her mouth. Her step faltered. The alley closed ahead, and the world narrowed to the sound of blood and running boots. The girl pressed herself against the alley wall, breath shallow, fingers slipping on brick slick with old rain. Voices poured in from the street, rough and tangled. "Sheriff's down." Who fired? Check the roof. She could hear boots scattering like thrown stones. The alley stretched ahead, a thin vein between buildings, ending in a sliver of light near the old well. She moved, not fast, precise. Each foot placed like memory, careful to avoid loose debris. Her ribs ached, but she held the scrap of paper the clerk had given her like a lifeline. A crash behind her. Crates overturned. A rider's voice. She's in the lane. She ducked around a corner. The alley grew narrower, walls leaning like old men. Laundry lines hung low, cloth brushing her face like cold hands. At the office front, chaos bloomed. The badge holder knelt by the sheriff, pressing cloth to the wound. Blood soaked through fast, too fast. "Breathe!" he barked. The sheriff coughed, red at his lips. "Get her out!" he rasped. "Paper be damned!" The badge holder glanced at the man. "You hear him?" The man gripped the pistol tighter, vision swimming. "I hear," the foreman snarled. "Forget the girl. Lock down the town." One of his men shook his head. "Sheriff's hit. Town'll riot if we drag a child." "We don't leave debt unpaid," the foreman said. "Debt?" the badge holder snapped. "You call this debt?" The counselor raised his hands. "Enough." A rifle cracked overhead. The roofman fired again, bullet slicing a signpost clean. The seamstress flinched but held her ground beside the wounded sheriff. "You'll kill us all with that gun." The roofman laughed thin. "Then stop playing saints." Back in the alley, the girl reached the turn where the map said, "Drop left, find stone well." She peered around, heart hammering. There it was, an old brick circle, half sunken, covered in ivy and forgotten things. A wooden cover sat crooked over it, tied with frayed rope. She sprinted the last stretch. Behind her, footsteps slammed on the cobbles. "There!" She didn't look back. She threw her weight against the well cover. It didn't move. She tried again. Wood groaned, but held. The footsteps grew louder, men shouting, metal clattering. She pressed her palms flat on the splintered wood, pushed. It shifted a breath, just enough to smell dark water below. Her hands slipped. She tried again, vision blurring. Her arms shook, a voice behind her. Too close. "Got you." She spun. A rider stood at the alley mouth, gun drawn, chest heaving. He looked younger up close, freckles across his nose, sweat shining on his brow. "Don't make this hard," he said. Her eyes flicked to his holster. The strap wasn't latched. His hands shook a fraction. "You don't want to take me," she said. He hesitated. You have sisters?" she asked. He blinked. "Doesn't matter." "It does," she said. "Would you drag them?" His jaw worked. "Orders. Orders break people," she said. He faltered. "Move." She stood still. He raised the gun. "I said—" A whistle cut down the alley, sharp, 2 short notes. Another rider shouting, "Leave her! Foreman says back up front." The young rider glanced toward the street. "But now!" The shout came again. He swore under his breath, eyes still on her. "This isn't over." She said nothing. He backed away a step, gun still trained. Another rider appeared behind him, grabbing his arm. "Come on." "I had her," he muttered. "She's paperweight. Foreman says regroup," the other snapped. The young rider hesitated 1 heartbeat longer. The girl watched him, steady. Then he spat at the ground near her feet and turned away. Bootsteps retreated. She stood alone. She shoved the well cover again. It scraped, shifted, then slid enough to reveal a dark gap. Damp air breathed from below. She looked back down the alley, empty for now. She swung one leg over the well, then another. She let her body drop slowly between the stones, hands finding the old iron rungs just inside. Her foot slipped on slime. She caught herself, breath sharp. Above, the last sliver of light narrowed. Then the cover scraped as someone, maybe wind, maybe not, pushed it a little more closed. At the office, the man steadied himself against the desk. The room felt tilted like a ship in wind. He wiped blood from his sleeve and fingers slick. The counselor's voice came distant. "Sheriff fades. We need a decision." The badge holder stood shakily, pistol still in hand. "Decision's made. She escapes." "You think they won't chase?" the foreman sneered. "They'll try," the man said. "They won't find." The foreman leaned in, eyes cruel. You think you've done something noble." The man didn't answer. He turned toward the back alley door. The counselor called after him. "If you leave now, you'll be outlaw." The man paused. "I was outlaw the moment I cared." The counselor watched him go, something like respect buried in his frown. "Then walk fast." He stepped through the doorway. The back alley stretched before him, empty but humming with threat. The wind carried a faint echo, a single knuckle knock against wood, far away. Not loud, not urgent, just waiting. The alley swallowed him like a throat, narrow, damp, smelling of mold and iron. His boots slipped on wet stone, but he forced himself forward, one arm pressed to his wound to stop the bleeding. Somewhere up ahead, unseen, wood creaked, faint, hollow, the well cover shifting. A signal. He followed it. Behind him, the shouts from the main street tangled with gunmetal echoes. "Find her. She went this way. Check every lane." A dog barked once, sharp, then yelped as someone kicked it aside. He moved faster. Further back at the office door, the badge holder stood with pistol lowered, chest heaving. The sheriff lay against the wall, breath shallow, eyes glass-glazed but aware. "Go," the sheriff rasped, "before the street closes." The badge holder bowed his head once, something heavy in his eyes. "You signed up for order. You got a war." The sheriff's mouth twitched in a humorless smile. "Every law becomes war when someone bleeds for it." The seamstress pressed a cloth to the sheriff's chest. "Hold on." He shook his head once. "Hold hope instead." His eyes sought the back alley. "Make sure they don't waste this." The girl climbed deeper into the well shaft, hands slick on cold metal, breath loud in the dark. Her feet found the next rung, then another. Stone scraped her shoulder. She winced but didn't stop. Drip, drip, water below, stagnant and deep. She remembered the map. Halfway down, a tunnel to the left. Only wide enough for a thin body, the clerk had said. She reached out. Fingers found rough stone, then an opening, low and black. She pulled herself inside, crawling on elbows, the coat dragging mud. Above, something thudded on the well cover. Voices muffled. "She's in here. Get the rope." Cold water puddled at her knees. She pushed forward faster, not caring about noise now. The tunnel seemed to breathe, walls slick and tight. Behind her, the cover screeched open. A lantern beam stabbed into the shaft, stabbing down the stones like a moon made of fire. "There's movement. Hold the light steady." She flattened herself. A rider's voice echoed down. "You can't hide forever, girl." She closed her eyes. Her breath touched stone and came back cold. In the alley above, the man reached the well. The cover was half off, rope being lowered by one of the foreman's men. The man's pulse flared. "Pull her!" the rider above shouted. The man stepped into view. The rider nearly dropped the rope. "You!" The man slammed his shoulder into the well rim, grabbing the rope just above the knot. "You want her!" he growled. "Come down!" The rider hesitated. "Orders say, I say come down." The rider swallowed, knuckles white on the rope. "Don't make me kill you." "You already tried," the man said. He yanked the rope forward. Hard. The rider toppled, slamming into the well stones with a bark of surprise. Lantern light swung, scattering shadows like wild birds. The rider clung to the rope, boots kicking against cold stone. "Pull me up." The man didn't. He bent low, dragged the rider further down the well mouth. The rope burned against his palm. Pain flared but steadied his mind. "Stop, you'll both fall," someone shouted from above. The man looked down into darkness. The rope in his hand twitched, muscles trembling. Behind him, footsteps thundered as more men arrived at the well. "Let go," one shouted. "Let him up." The man didn't let go. Inside the tunnel, the girl heard the scuffle above, voices tangled with rope creak. She crawled faster, ignoring the stone cutting into her palms. The air ahead smelled faintly of sagebrush and dust. Open air somewhere beyond. Her hand pressed against wood. A panel, old and soft. She pushed. It resisted. From behind, echoing down the tunnel, a voice she knew, raw, strained. "Move! Now!" She pushed again, hard. The wood cracked like old bone. A sliver of daylight pierced the tunnel, thin as a promise. She broke it wider with her shoulder. Sunlight bled in, She crawled out onto wet dirt behind an abandoned tannery, weeds tall around her like grass over a grave. At the well, the man's injured arm trembled. The rope slipped a fraction. The rider screamed, clinging. "Haul me!" the rider cried to his comrades, but the foreman's men didn't move. They watched the man, watched the girl's lifeline dangle over the dark mouth. "You let go," the foreman said quietly, "and you hang too." The man looked at him. "Then we both drop." The foreman's eyes narrowed. "You don't have that in you." The man's voice was calm. "You don't know what hunger teaches." A hush fell like dust settling. The rope jerked in his grip, the rider trying to climb. The man slammed him back down with a savage pull. The rider groaned, knuckles bloody. The foreman stepped forward. "Enough! Step back! We retrieve her." The rope shivered in the man's hand. Blood ran from his wounded arm down his wrist, slick and warm. He didn't move. "Make a choice," the foreman said. "Rope or life." He didn't let go. The girl stumbled into sunlight, lungs filling with air that tasted like metal. She heard gunfire echo far behind, muffled by stone and dust. She didn't look back yet. She pressed one hand to the earth and whispered something under her breath. Not prayer, not thanks, just a promise. Then she ran. The girl sprinted along the back of the tannery yard, weeds whipping her legs. The earth here was soft, churned by carts and stray hooves. Every heartbeat felt too loud, like drums calling enemies. Behind her, shouted orders cracked through the air. "Block the well, send 2 to the north fence. Check the yard. She can't cross main road without eyes on her." She dropped low, crawling beneath a broken fence slat, splinters snagging her coat. She didn't cry out. Pain was a language she already knew too well. Beyond the fence, a dry creek bed cut through the ground, choked with tumbleweed. She slid down into it, landing hard on her elbow. Grit filled her mouth. She spit once, then crawled along the creek bed, keeping low where the earth curved. A whistle echoed from the alley, sharp, 2 notes, a signal she now understood. They'd found the man. She stopped. For a moment, her breath froze. Then she forced herself to move. At the well, the man's grip on the rope slipped another inch. Blood slicked his palm. His vision blurred, but he held. The rider hanging on the rope gasped, voice raw. "Help! I'm slipping!" "You hold," the man said, "or fall." The foreman's men hesitated. None stepped forward to pull the man away. They watched, uncertain, like dogs waiting to see which master to follow. The foreman's jaw clenched. "End this." "Cut him loose." The counselor stepped between them, eyes sharp. "If you do that, this becomes murder in daylight." "We own the paper," the foreman said. "You don't own the crowd," the counselor replied. Heads turned. Townsfolk had gathered in doorways, behind barrels at windows, silent, watching. The seamstress stood in the office doorway, shirt stained red from the sheriff's blood. The badge holder stood beside her, pistol ready, face grim. "You cut that rope. You declare war on every decent soul left here." The foreman spat in the dust. "Decency's a cheap word." "Cheaper than labor," the seamstress said. The foreman's eyes flicked to the seamstress, then back to the man gripping the rope. "You'll break before I do." The man said nothing. He kept his eyes on the ground where the girl had vanished. His breath came slow. Pain roared through his arm like fire, but he held. "You still think she's worth this?" the foreman asked. The man's voice came low. "Worth more than you can measure." The foreman's mouth twisted into something ugly. "Then bleed." He stepped forward, hand closing over his revolver. "On my count." The counselor raised a hand. "Foreman!" "Don't!" the foreman snapped. He pointed the revolver at the man's head. 3. The rope jerked again. The rider below screamed. 2. The seamstress stepped forward. "Stop!" The badge holder aimed his pistol. "Drop it!" The foreman's men raised their guns. A gunshot rang, but not from the foreman. From the alley. The counselor turned. "What?" The foreman staggered, dust exploding near his boot heel as a bullet struck the ground beside him. Another shot split the air, clean and sharp. A warning. The men spun toward the alley. There, emerging from shadow, the sheriff. Pale, bleeding, barely upright, one hand pressed to his chest, pistol in the other. His voice came out like gravel dragged over stone. "You fire on him! You fire on my law!" The foreman froze, eyes wide. The sheriff took one slow step forward. "And my law still stands." Blood dripped from his coat, but his aim was steady. The men with rifles hesitated, glancing at each other. The sheriff locked eyes with the man holding the rope. "Let go." The man's breath caught. "She's climbing." "She's gone," the sheriff said. "Your grip keeps you chained." The word cut deeper than the bullet wound. Chained. The man looked at his hand, at the rope, at the blood. Slowly, he loosened his grip. The rope slid. The rider shrieked, boots scraping as he scrambled to stop his fall. He caught a stone outcrop, dangling, cursing. The foreman shouted, "Haul him! Haul him!" Two men rushed to the edge, pulling the rider up. He collapsed onto the dirt, shaking. The man stood by the well, arm bleeding, chest heaving with the effort of letting go. The sheriff swayed on his feet. The badge holder caught him before he fell. "You did it," the badge holder whispered. The sheriff shook his head weakly. "No, she did." The foreman looked toward the tannery yard, following the trail of weeds crushed by unseen feet. "She won't get far," he said. The counselor met his gaze. "She's already farther than you'll ever be." The foreman's eyes hardened. "Riders!" A new sound cut him off. A distant church bell began to ring, slow, single strokes, not a call to service, a warning. Riders on the ridge, dust rising beyond town limits. Two figures in the distance, one small, one moving steady. The girl, crossing the creek bed, coat trailing behind like a banner. And someone else stepping into view on the ridge, a lone rider with a wide-brim hat, watching the town like a judge. The foreman squinted. "Who is that?" The counselor shaded his eyes. "Not one of yours." The church bell tolled again. The sheriff, barely conscious, whispered a single word. "Witness." The bell kept ringing. The bell rang again. Each toll rolled across the town like thunder caught in iron. On the ridge, the lone rider didn't move. Just watched, still patient, as if judging distance and intent. The foreman lowered his revolver slowly. He looked uneasy for the first time. "Who sent that?" No one answered. The counselor stepped forward, hands folded behind his back. "Law travels. Sometimes slower than greed, but it travels." The sheriff leaned on the badge holder, breath shallow, but eyes clear. "Not law," he muttered. "Justice." The girl, far from town now, moved along the creek bed with careful steps, bending low under sagebrush. Her breath still came hard, but relief tasted different now. Not safety, just distance between chains. She glanced once toward the ridge. The lone rider remained motionless, a silhouette against the pale horizon. She didn't know whether he watched over her or waited to catch her. It didn't matter. She kept moving. Back at the well, the foreman stepped toward the man. "You think this is finished?" The man held his bleed-wrapped shoulder, steady despite the pain. "I think your paper is—" The foreman's eyes burned. "Paper burns. But land remembers." The counselor tilted his head slightly. "Then the land will remember your cruelty." A murmur rippled through the crowd, not loud, but heavy. Ordinary townsfolk, who had said nothing before, now shifted closer, watching. The seamstress crossed her arms. "You lost today, foreman. Let it go." The foreman's mouth twisted. "She's a nobody. You'll risk your town for her." The badge holder stepped forward. "People like you make towns forget what they stand for." The foreman gestured sharply to his men. "Mount up, we ride north. She crosses our line. She's ours again." The sheriff, weak but fierce, raised his pistol. "First step past that church bell and you're mine." The foreman laughed, but it cracked like dry wood. "You can't even stand." The sheriff's voice cut like old steel. "Standing is not required to shoot." Silence. The counselor looked at the foreman. "You want blood on a church day with a bell still ringing." The bell tolled again, echoing like memory. The foreman spat, then turned away with a snarl. "This isn't done." "Paper comes back stronger. We'll be here when it does," the seamstress said. He mounted his horse. His men followed, glancing back with something between shame and fear. They rode north, but not toward the girl. Not yet. They rode without the urgency of hunters. Not today. not with eyes on them. The man swayed, nearly falling. The badge holder caught him. "Sit," the badge holder said. The man shook his head. "She needs distance." "You need blood," the seamstress said. "You'll drop before you reach the fence line." "Let him go," the sheriff said quietly. The seamstress shook her head. "He'll die." The sheriff looked at the man, then at the ridge, then the creek. She moved. Someone must walk behind her shadow, to erase the tracks. The man met his gaze. "I can." The sheriff's eyes softened. "Then go. But don't bleed alone." The seamstress stepped forward, thrusting a bundle into the man's good arm. "Bread, cloth, a scrap of salt. If you fall, I'll know. Dust tells." He nodded once. Muted gratitude. The sheriff pointed toward the ridge. "Walk low, stay to shade, and when you reach her, don't speak first. Let her choose if you walk beside her or behind." The man looked at the alley. Dark, narrow. Then he stepped toward it. The counselor called softly. "There will be new papers tomorrow." "I know," the man said. "And more after that," the counselor added. The man didn't turn. "Then we'll walk faster." He entered the alley. Outside town limits, the creek curved like a scar across the land. The girl paused to catch her breath beside a fallen log, pressing her ear to the earth. She listened, not for hooves, but for life. The wind shifted. A shadow moved behind her. She didn't turn. Footsteps approached slow, deliberate, the sound of someone trying not to sound like they were there. She kept her eyes on the horizon. After 3 slow steps, the footsteps stopped. No demand, no spoken claim, just presence. She waited. The silence between them stretched like a new path drawn in dust. Finally, she spoke without turning. "If you step ahead of me, I leave you. If you walk behind me, I leave you. If you walk beside me, then we see." He didn't speak, only stepped once, placing his foot beside hers, matching her shadow. The wind carried the distant sound of the bell, one last toll, thin as a thread, tying town to road, law to choice, blood to freedom. She stood. He stood. She didn't reach for his hand. He didn't offer. They walked, side by side, between sage and sun, toward a horizon with no paper on it. They walked until the sun dipped low, staining the horizon a bruised red. The land ahead was open, too open, nothing but sagebrush, dry wind, and a sky big enough to swallow secrets. The girl paused at a ridge of rock, breathing through cracked lips. The man stopped beside her, holding the cloth bundle the seamstress had forced into his hand. He had not spoken since the alley. Neither had she. Words felt too loud for a moment, this thin. Below them, far off, dust trails cut across the land, riders fanning out but not yet pursuing. They moved with the slow discipline of men who knew paper outran bullets more effectively than horses. The girl watched the dust trails with a hard, quiet gaze. "They will write again," she said. "They will," he agreed. "And they will come," she said. "They will." She turned, eyes on him. "Will you always trade blood to buy breath for others?" He looked at his bandaged shoulder. A thin line of fresh red seeped through. "If I must." She studied his face, unreadable. "You don't own me." "I know," he said. "I don't belong to you," she said. "You don't," he said. She looked at the horizon again. "Then walk without binding me." He nodded. "I walk." She took a few steps forward. He waited. After 3 heartbeats, she slowed, not waiting, not inviting, just allowing space beside her. He stepped into it. They moved again. Wind scraped across the land like a blade over stone. The sky opened wider. In the distance, a raven flew low, wings beating with the rhythm of old drums. The girl spoke without looking at him. "Do you know where you walk?" He shook his head. "Only forward." "That is not direction," she said. "No," he admitted. "But it is movement." She almost smiled, not with her mouth, but with something in her stance that loosened. "Movement without purpose is just escape." "Then we find purpose," he said. "You bleed. You will fall," she said. "If I fall walking," he replied. She looked at him then, really looked. The silence between them shifted, less hostile now, more like 2 fires learning where the other burns. She motioned to a dry gully. "So we can shelter there before night. Coyotes hunt when the light fades. He nodded. They descended into the shallow trench, rocks crunching beneath their boots. A cluster of scrub offered partial cover. She knelt and cupped her hands in the dust, feeling for moisture under the surface. He sank down against a rock, breath heavy. She glanced at him. "Let me see the wound." "It's fine," he said. "It's not," she said simply. He hesitated, then unwrapped the cloth. The bullet graze was deep, angry but clean. He'd lost more blood than he realized. She tore a cleaner strip from the seamstress's linen, dipped it in the shallow pool at the gully bottom. The water turned faintly pink. She pressed the cloth to his shoulder. He winced but didn't pull away. "You should hate me," he said quietly. She pressed harder. "Why?" "I slowed you." She didn't answer for a long moment. Then, "You made noise." "Noise makes paper hesitate." He blinked. "Paper," she nodded. "Quiet people vanish. Loud ones get written about." He let out a slow breath. "Then maybe noise has use." She tied the cloth tight. "Better than chains." He leaned back. "Will you keep running?" She looked toward the far horizon, a place where the earth met sky with no boundaries ink could touch. "I won't run," she said. "I will walk until the ground accepts me." "And if the riders follow?" he asked. She met his gaze. "Fire steady now." "Then I make them walk too." A rustle sounded above. Wind moving through dry brush. No hooves yet, no shouts, just the restless quiet before fate chooses a direction. The man closed his eyes for a moment. The pain in his shoulder throbbed with his pulse. "If you ask me to stop walking beside you," he said, "I will." She considered. "If you walk behind me, I will hear your steps. If you walk ahead, I will see your shadow." "Beside me," she paused, fingers tracing the linen knot, "is quieter." He opened his eyes. She stood, facing the open land. "Night comes. We walk." He rose, slower than before. She did not reach for his arm, but when he stumbled on loose stone, she slowed without turning. Side by side they stepped forward. The bell in town rang one last time, distant, faint, like a closing chapter, and the wind carried no paper with it. The land shifted color as the sun dipped into its final arc, turning the sky to rust and amber. Shadows stretched over the broken earth like long, reaching hands, some trying to pull things back, others letting them go. The girl and the man walked in that in-between light, where footprints fade faster than memory. They didn't speak. There was no need. The world around them carried its own dialogue, wind whispering through sage, a raven calling once before vanishing into orange sky, the far-off bell echo finally fading into silence. No more ringing, no more chains written in paper. The man's steps grew heavier, but he did not fall. Each breath hurt, shoulder raw beneath the linen, but the wound no longer felt like punishment. Just proof that some roads demand blood before they allow passage. The girl walked steady beside him, her coat catching the evening wind, flaring like a small banner of survival. She no longer looked back toward the town. Whatever law remained there, it was no longer written for her. Ahead, the land leveled into a stretch of open plain scattered with scrub. In the distance, a faint line of smoke rose. Maybe a settlement, maybe a camp, maybe just the earth breathing. She paused a moment, head tilted, as if listening not with ears but with bone. "That way," she said. He nodded. Night began its slow descent. Stars, faint at first, pricked through the sky. The last light burned on the horizon like a promise too stubborn to die. She stopped and turned toward the fading edge of day. "One thing," she said. He waited. "If I reach that smoke," she said, "I do not arrive as property." "You won't," he said. "And you do not arrive as savior," she added. He met her gaze. "I won't." She studied him for a breath, then looked forward again. The moment passed like a small door closing behind them, quiet, final. They walked on. Behind them, the town shrank to a shadow on the land. Somewhere in its streets, paper cooled, ink dried, and ledgers prepared for new names that would never be hers. The well remained, half covered. A rope dangled, swaying gently in the breeze like a noose that had failed its purpose. The clerk would close his ledger with a different silence tonight, The seamstress would light a small candle in a back room and leave it burning until the wick surrendered. The badge holder would stand by the sheriff's bedside, listening for breath. And the foreman, seeing the Ridge Rider still watching from afar, would taste something bitter, maybe defeat, maybe understanding, maybe nothing at all. But out here, on the plain, none of that mattered. Out here, there was only dirt, sky, and the sound of two sets of footsteps moving at the same pace. Not running, not chasing, just walking, one beat at a time, one breath at a time, until even their shadows became the same length. If stories like this haunt you the way a trail haunts the man who walked it, then don't ride past. Stay with us. There are more roads to follow, more names the paper forgot, more lives that refuse to be written in chains. Subscribe and walk the next mile with us.